Grammar through authentic texts and stories. Teaching grammar through texts and stories. Teaching grammar through stories not only enhances language comprehension but also fosters a deeper appreciation for the nuances of language within the context of narrative, allowing students to engage with grammar in a meaningful and memorable way. Teaching grammar through texts is an effective way to provide students with real-world examples of grammar rules in context. Here's a step-by-step guide on how to do this, along with an example.
Man with a gun. This is Mr. West. He has a bag in his left hand. He is standing at the door of his house. He is going to put his hand into his pocket. He is going to take a gun out of his pocket. He is going to point the gun at a mysterious figure. Mr. West cautiously approaches a mysterious figure in the shadows, his grip tight on his gun. Tension builds. He wonders if the figure poses a threat. With trembling hands, he demands the intruder reveal themselves, but there is no response. A passing car's light reveals the figure as Mrs. Thompson, returning a borrowed tool. Mr. West is relieved and embarrassed by his overreaction. He escorts Mrs. Thompson home and reflects on the importance of caution and clarity in future situations.
Discussion on grammar. Throughout the story, various grammar points can be observed and discussed. 1. Verb tenses. The story primarily uses present tense verbs to describe Mr. West's actions and the unfolding events. He is standing, he is going to put, etc. This consistent use of present tense helps to create a sense of immediacy and engages the reader in the action as it happens. 2. Prepositions. Prepositions are used to indicate location and movement in the story: in his left hand, at the door of his house, into his pocket. Understanding prepositions is crucial for conveying spatial relationships accurately in writing. 3. Modal verbs. Modal verbs such as, is going to, are used to indicate future actions or intentions. He is going to put his hand into his pocket. He is going to take a gun out of his pocket. Discussing modal verbs helps students understand how language can express predictions and plans for the future. The implications of this context-sensitive view of language on grammar teaching. In context, grammar is best taught and practiced in context. This means using whole texts as contexts for grammar teaching. Authentic language use. Teaching grammar in context allows students to learn the language as it's naturally used, enhancing practical language skills. Critical thinking skills. Context-based grammar teaching fosters critical thinking as students analyze how grammar choices impact communication effectiveness. Cultural awareness. By exploring language in context, students gain insight into the cultural dimensions of language, promoting intercultural understanding. About storytelling. Everyone loves a story. Stories can be used for both eliciting and illustrating grammar points. Eliciting employs inductive reasoning. Illustrating requires deductive thought. The benefits of storytelling method. Almost any of us can tell stories with energy and interest. Students naturally like to listen to stories. Most are remembered long after the lesson is over. Advantages of using stories. They provide contextual information, allowing learners to deduce the meaning of unfamiliar grammatical items from the context. If the texts are authentic, they can show how the item is used in real communication. As well as grammar input, texts provide vocabulary input, skills practice, and exposure to features of text organization. Their use in the classroom is good preparation for independent study. If the texts come from the students themselves, they may be more engaging and their language features therefore more memorable. Disadvantages. The difficulty of the text, especially an authentic one, may mean that some of the above advantages are lost. The alternative to use simplified texts may give a misleading impression as to how the language item is naturally used, again defeating the purpose of using texts. Not all texts will be of equal interest to students. Features. Storytelling is one of these extremely versatile techniques. A technique that holds students' attention best. Provides enjoyment most. Stories should last from 1 to 5 minutes. The more exaggerated and bizarre they are, the more likely students will remember the teaching points they illustrate.